We should start.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to that session of the Life After Graduation. I'm very happy to welcome our panelists, Brandon, Shanice, Fern, and Alan. So most of you know me, I'm Dr. K. I'm most as your econ teacher. I'm also the advisor of the Economics Club. So to start the program, I would like for the panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Brandon, Shanice, Fern, and Alan. So Brandon, if you care to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dr. K. I appreciate you for setting this up. It's a pleasure to speak to all of you. So my name is Brendan O'Leary. Graduated Oneonta last May. I'm from Washingtonville, New York, which is in Orange County. Went to high school there, played basketball for 3 years there, then started out at Orange County Community College. Continued playing basketball there for 2 years as well. Transferred to Binghamton's business school, and then that was over COVID, and then ended up graduating from Oneonta with business econ and a concentration in finance. And since then, I've been working since July for Goldman Sachs as an analyst in the ACO family office up near Albany. And pretty much my role has been in the wealth management division there. So we handle about 10 or 12 clients each under an account manager that I work for. And they're each worth about $150 million. And we handle anything from, investing assets for them, where to allocate their monies, to estate planning, tax planning. So it's a very broad role.
Thank you. Shanice?
Yes, my name is Shanice Thomas. I graduated from Oneonta May of 2021, majored in business economics with a concentration in finance. I was actually the student vice president of Beta Gamma Sigma. I then went on to get my MBA at Binghamton University in finance, and I now work for TD Securities in the credit management space for investment portfolio. So this is basically the structured finance, doing CLOs, ABS, CMBS. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but basically what happens is we will buy your loan. So in simpler terms, if you go to Honda and you take out a loan for a car, what they'll do is they'll pool the best loans from that and then sell it to someone else. And that's basically where I come in. We kind of do the analysis to see what's the likelihood of our company getting paid back from that deal itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Fern?
How are you guys doing? So my name is Fernando Pena. I graduated from Oneonta in December of 2018. During my time in Oneonta, I was pretty involved in different facets of campus. I was a business development intern with Sodexo, and that gave me the opportunity to go to Thailand to do some business development work there over within a good chunk of Asia. I was also an RA and a member of Zeta Beta Tau, so I made sure to keep myself relatively busy on campus. After I graduated, I worked for a company known as Pareto, which is a British sales consultancy. They're essentially focused within London and Winslow and that surrounding area. I did that for a bit as a business development executive. I think at the start of the pandemic, I was then recruited to join Augury. They essentially are focused within the AI analytics space for manufacturing. So companies like Pepsi and Procter & Gamble, Apple, like a large array of manufacturers. And what I do there now is essentially focus within sales development as an SDR manager. So I manage a team of around 9 salespeople that are located across the US and Canada. And my job is to make sure that they're A, hitting quotas effectively, but B, ensuring that we're building out a continuous book of business and bringing in revenue. So I basically kind of oversee that whole operation. So it's been pretty good.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Alan. I graduated also in December of 2018 alongside Fernando. I studied business economics with a concentration in finance. And then post-graduation, I started with JP Morgan in the corporate analyst development program. So that was a 2-year rotational program, went across different lines of businesses at the bank. And then after my 2 years there, I joined the fixed income manager selection team. So essentially what our team does is go out to the street and pick the best fixed income investments for our portfolio managers to include in their portfolios, and our financial advisors then go and sell them to their clients.
Thank you. So next, I want to pass it on to Justin, who will introduce you how the program will be conducted.
So I am the president of the Economics Club, and I am here with two other members and a guest speaker.
Hi, I'm Deja. I am the PR of the Economics Club.
I'm Michael, I'm the secretary.
I'm Joe, I'm an economics student.
And the program will be conducted by each of us asking one of the panelists a question in order until about 8:35. We will then move on to the Q&A section where we encourage you to ask any question that you have in mind. It could be related to their field, or it could be just any question in general that you want to ask them about. And feel free to ask anything. And now we will begin with the program, and I will move on to the first question with Brendan O'Leary. And I would ask, how did you know that you wanted to pursue a career in finance, and what led you to landing your first initial job in that industry?
Yeah, thank you, Justin. So, thinking about this, there's probably about, 3 parts to this answer. And first, I would say is, when I first started thinking about getting into finance, I thought of kind of the very stereotypical roles you think of, the traders, your investment bankers. But to me, that wasn't really what stuck out when I finally got into it. It was just kind of how intriguing the nature of financial markets was to me, and how on one side it can be very quantitative in nature and a very niche focused, business specific industry. But at the center of it, financial markets affects all of us, and like a ripple through the stock market, like we've seen with regional banks this past week, or how the huge decline in 2022, it affects not only those in the industry, but me and you. I mean, during high periods of inflation now, you go to the grocery store, you get gas, and we all see an effect in it. So I thought that to be, very interesting to me, at least. And second was being an athlete. I've just always been an insanely competitive person. And I think, the high pressure environment that a lot of these financial jobs are, and the competitiveness within them was appealing to me, at least. And then for your second part of how I landed this role. So I was involved a lot I was in the finance club at Oneonta and at my previous institutions. But for me, it was more of extracurriculars outside of it. I was involved in, M&A case competitions, stock pitches, just very kind of pursuing the financial career path outside of the classroom, I think helped me a lot. And it started in late September during my senior year here, when I just kept applying, as many of you probably are, to just any role that seemed appealing, and finally got an online interview for a wealth management division role within Goldman Sachs. That led to 3 or 4 more interviews. And it wasn't until the middle of the spring semester that I knew I secured the role. And from there, I actually had a 2-week orientation at their headquarters in Manhattan. Then we had another 5-week training period, our licensing period, another 4-week training period. So it's been a lot quickly, and it's definitely been an experience. So that's why I'm very happy to speak with all of you today about that. But thank you, Justin.
Very interesting. Of course, we still have the financial club on campus. On to the next question.
All right, thank you. So Shanice, while you were at Oneonta, did you have any idea that your job existed?
No, I did not. I actually applied to this job on a whim. I was applying to every single job on this planet. I probably applied to over 100 jobs. I kind of went into panic mode and felt like I had to find something. But I think this is a really great question, because it kind of touches on a dilemma that I faced while I was at Oneonta. Upon graduating, I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to be in the financial space. I didn't waver on that, but exactly what sector or department I wanted to go into, no clue on that. So I was just trying to throw as far as the ball it could go. So from here, I think what I kind of want to touch on here is to say that I went in with 2 ideas. So one, I was looking for something that was gonna offer me immense growth as well as challenges. So I went in with the interviews with that idea, and I think that's something you should take on. Interviews is very important, because you need to understand that you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And you're kind of getting a feel for what they are and what the job is about, especially if you don't know what the job is about, or if you don't know what you want to get into, that the interview is the best way to get into that. So when I went on this interview in particular, the reason why I moved forward was because there was a Binghamton alum, which he is a great boss up until this moment, a great mentor. And I think that's something that kind of driven me to that, not necessarily the role itself. But just to get back to the question, there was 2 things that kind of focused on one, I could be looking at something that was going to challenge me I didn't know anything about, and I could love it and be passionate about, which is kind of how I feel in my role now. Or it could be the latter, which I could potentially hate it and be miserable. But then I thought about it from a standpoint where I wouldn't be starting at ground zero anymore almost. You're kind of starting from a standpoint where your resume is now stronger, because I've also realized that the job alone cannot bring full self fulfillment. Basically, you need to be looking at the work culture, the team culture, growth opportunities, work-life balance, and obviously the elephant in the room that people always say you shouldn't talk about, salary. It's very important to kind of think about those things. So I think after challenging myself and kind of going towards this job, I realized that even if I didn't love it, there would have been another job there. And the goal is to always learn those skills to take elsewhere. So I say all this to say kind of this: if you feel like this is a job that's going to challenge you, that you never saw before, go for it. And there's a wide range of different jobs out there if you just explore and do your research and kind of find where you fit in, because you don't have to have it all figured out at this moment. And right now you're probably hearing a ton of different things to kind of say, oh, it's been 4 years, you should know what direction you're supposed to go into, but you really don't. And I think you just need to take that opportunity to try something new and just get out in the space and network and ask as many questions as you possibly can and make a good impression. Thank you.
So the next question is for Fernando. What skills or experience did you need to jump into SDR management?
Cool. So once I started off in Augury as an SDR, and just to paint a picture of what this role entails, because back when I was in college, I was very committed towards the idea of jumping into like investment banking or let's say stocks, and I just didn't know that there were other venues in terms of what I can do that can not only give me a chance to get promoted sooner than later, but also something that's going to pay me well. So just to give you an idea of what the role is, it essentially involves outbound outreach to prospects in order to set up business appointments for our account executives to close software deals. It's solely focused on software sales. And what's good about the role is that there is a good amount of autonomy in that we don't have an office at this point, right? It's a global business. So I've had the opportunity to work from everywhere and anywhere just with this headset and a laptop. Just as of recently, I just came back from Colombia in terms of being able to just, again, work from anywhere. But what comes with that is that you have to be able to entrust in your people. So they do require a good range of management experience. Fortunately, back when I was in Pareto, I was also managing a team of recruiters. So I think that helped me kind of get into the role. And in terms of what skill set, I think one, you got to be able to think on a whim. You're managing like 8 people with 8 very different personalities. To be transparent, I'm 26 and there are people on my team that are in their 40s with kids. So you have to be able to kind of deviate and level set with people despite the differences in age and experience and that gap that's there. You have to be able to, on a whim, speak with clients, be able to train people. Unfortunately, there are times you have to fire people. I think when it comes down to management, you have to put your personal emotion and conviction at the door. And be able to do what's best for the betterment of not only the team, but also whatever you're gonna have to do to bring in revenue in the most efficient fashion. So I think all in all, being able to communicate well, being able to collaborate and get feedback effectively, but all in all, you have to be competitive, right? Because I think if you aren't bringing in the results that the company needs, and before you know it, it can put yourself in hot water. So I think jumping into sales, specifically SaaS and software, there's a lot of money in it, but you have to have the right mindset and you have to be competitive in order to be successful. So if you think that's something that you can, obtain, then I think SDR management might be a good route for you at some point in the future.
Very true. So the next question is for Alan. What advice would you have for current undergrads?
Yeah, and we just heard some great advice from Fernando, Shanice, and Brendan, and I'm going to echo most of those points. But what I would say is really get involved. We've heard that's kind of a common theme across the 3 people who just spoke, that they were doing extracurriculars outside of just going to class every day. And I would say go one step further than just joining a club. Go for leadership there. So if don't just go for the finance club, try and get onto the e-board. It does make a difference when you go to interview. As I found out the hard way, going for like a interview as a sophomore, and the interviewer asked me, what did you do within the finance club? And I didn't have any answers. So the next time that I met with him, I was the president of the club. I was the president of 2 honor societies and on the student advisory council at the school. So try and go one step beyond what's being asked of you, because it really does help you stand out. The second point I would make is get creative with whatever role you're looking for. If it's finance, everyone's going to say, oh, I'm interested in the stock market. So how do you separate yourself from the rest of the students that you're competing against? For example, there's a wealth management firm in town in Oneonta. When I was an undergrad, I went down there and just asked if I could shadow, and eventually got an internship down there just to learn the business and know what goes on in the day-to-day. Kind of goes one step beyond just saying I have an interest in finance. Secondly, the Bloomberg terminals that you have available to you, that's what we do every day in this industry. So if you get familiar with those, you can read research reports, create your own research report on a company, a small company that, you know, these big investment banks don't follow. And if you know something about a company that the interviewer doesn't, it's going to really impress them. The third and last thing that I would suggest is picking up computer skills are becoming more and more essential. So if you can code in Python, it's always a plus. We use it on our team a lot. But yeah, I would leave you with try and go one step beyond, whether it's your technical skills, your EQ, whatever it is that's going to give you that edge versus the rest of the people that you're competing with.
Thank you very much. And on to the second question for Brendan. Reflecting back, what advice would you give current students interested in becoming professionals within the financial industry?
Yeah, so this is going to sound very cliche, and I'm sure all of you are sick of hearing it, but it's so true. Please network. Like what you're doing now, listening to the 4 of us, I mean, it's critical. Even if you just go on LinkedIn and start cold calling people, sending out messages of any role you find interesting, any company you might find peculiar, shoot them a message. The worst they're going to say is no or not answer. But what I found is people are more than accommodating to help, because that takes, you know, an element of confidence in itself to reach out like that. Even working in my role now, I have no desire to leave, but I'm constantly connecting with people just to see what else is out there. Because as most of you are in school now, similar to how we're just started out our careers, who knows if this is what I want to do forever or for long term. I mean, there could be something else out there that I love down the road. So always keep your doors open, don't burn bridges, and just learn how to talk to people. That's half the battle. You can learn all these technical skills and everything, but especially in a client-facing role, you have to be able to talk and communicate your thoughts to people. And second, I would say, again, you've heard this from all 4 of us so far, but take a legit interest in your whatever path you want to pursue outside of the classroom, even outside of Oneonta. Oneonta offers so much in itself. Dr. K is an awesome resource to use, but there's going to be more things out there that Oneonta might not offer. A school can only offer so much. Just take an interest to whatever career path you think you might like. You don't have to be dead set on it, and just see what else is out there outside of what you're learning in the classroom.
Thank you very much. And I think it is very true. Feel free to network with maybe even the panelists on LinkedIn after this. On to the next question.
All right, Shanice, what's the hardest thing about transitioning to life after graduation?
The hardest thing is kind of thinking about those training wheels being off. Oneonta kind of was a guided experience for me. You're kind of like, your growth is guided, your learning is guided. So kind of thinking about how I'm going to take my future in my own hands. And something that I really struggled with was when I first started my job, I had to kind of learn how to communicate with different people. And it was a little stressful because you're still trying to find your own identity. But here I am with 6 different bosses, 6 different personalities, 6 different work styles, and you're kind of figuring out how to fit in and how to work to fit all those different personalities, but also to create your own identity, to maintain that and be firm in your own understanding and finding out what is important to you almost. So one thing I realized is that, one, I'd have a boss who was very hands off, who just wanted the project to be done at the end and review it and be done. And then I had another one who was kind of like wanting it to be sequential. So every path, every stage that you get to, they wanted to be able to see that and hear your thoughts on that. So being able to transition and building new communication skills, I think was one thing I kind of struggled with the most, and kind of figuring out how to do all that and molding my own identity. So I think something that you have to do is kind of sitting down and really figuring out your passion. Because if you're really sitting there and just taking life as emotion and just being too comfortable, then that allows you to stay into that comfort zone. So I say, take a second to really think about what you want. What is your goals? What is the 5-year plan? And I know that's the most annoying thing to think about, because you're already stressing about what is going to happen today, and someone's telling you, what are you going to do in 10 years? You know, it's kind of like, I don't know today. So I think the most part is take a second, write down. And I really had to have a conversation with myself. And sometimes you have to just block out the noise and really just write down what you think is good for you, and what do you see for your future. And that way the noise doesn't kind of feed in and you change to fit who is around you. Yeah, thank you.
So the second question for Fernando. Did you always know that sales was your ideal career choice? And what do you like about Augury?
No, I didn't. No, I originally did not want to jump into sales. The thought of trying to do a sales call like turned me off completely, and I just wasn't looking to get into that role. Funny enough, I transferred from John Jay. Originally, my plan was to go into law enforcement, but like on a federal level, like the ATF and FBI, but then broke my shoulder. So then I had to like switch industries. And what I really got into it was the idea of being a part of a startup company. This was pre-COVID. I found like it was a very dynamic culture. You know, I mean, we can be honest, I have bleached hair across earring. Like I don't typically look super corporate, right? I have these little stupid slits on my eyebrow. So being a part of an area that was really dynamic, right? It doesn't, you know, at 2023, you don't have to necessarily be very suit and tie. Nothing against people that are in those types of environments. But I think it just aligned with my personality, right? Being in a role where I can be myself and communicate with people on a high level. So I think once I started jumping into like startups and, you know, applying to a lot of different like Series D, Series F companies where, you know, there's a lot of funding and established product, sales just made sense, right? I wasn't really someone that was looking to code or do accounting, but I knew with just utilizing my voice and my ability to talk to people, right? And if you find yourself having confidence, I think it can be a good fit for you. So specifically what I like about Augury, I think it's more so our product, right? I think if you're interested in joining a company and doing like sales development, the thing that you're looking to sell is extremely important. I won't, you know, spare you with all the details, but essentially we sell sensors and AI that collects vibration data, magnetic flux data, electronic data from $1 million manufacturing equipment, and we predict when the machine's going to break down before it actually does. Right. So being able to have access to that, that's why even during COVID, people were still buying our product, which definitely helped, since unfortunately a lot of people were getting let go. So I think secondly, outside of the product, what I do like about Augury is, again, the autonomy, right? I think I delegate my own schedule on top of the compensation. I think being able to work from anywhere is something that I really like, since again, we have like the unlimited kind of PTO / work option. So I've worked from like Morocco, Colombia, overseas. You kind of can, when it comes down to working in tech, if you're with the right company, you can you have a lot of autonomy. You can do what you want. So I think ultimately that and the benefit of sales is what attracted me to the opportunity. So if you think that's something that can fit you, then 100%, I would recommend going into it. It's definitely a great career, and you get promoted really quickly too, depending on where you're at ultimately.
And so, Alan, what experiences did you have at Oneonta that helped you prepare you and help you break into the role?
Yeah, I think a lot of things have already been said by everyone on here to help you break into whatever career you're looking for. So I won't harp too much on it. I guess the first thing I would say is the most helpful class that I've taken at Oneonta, barring the senior seminar, was the Fed Challenge. So if you're looking for a role in economics or finance, I would highly suggest signing up with that. I'm not sure if Dr. Story is still teaching that, but Fed Challenge was super helpful. And it's a lot of real world applicability there. The second part would be the extracurriculars. we all just went around the horn here and talked about how important those were. The writing the articles on financial topics, sending them out to your network, creating your own research reports. And then the last thing, but most important, which everyone had already said, was don't be afraid to reach out. You have 4 Oneonta alumni here who are here at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, happy to come and talk to you. So we really enjoy giving back, and because someone did it for us, and it feels good to pass that along. So I would say, don't be afraid to reach out. Oneonta alumni is a great place to start. But as Brendan had said, think outside of Oneonta as well. One thing that I can guarantee you is probably going to be rejection, but it's all right. You just keep going through it, and eventually it'll all work itself out.
Thank you very much. We can attest to the Fed Challenge being very useful. It is a really good class here. And so on to the final question for Brendan. How did you adjust to transferring to Oneonta from another school? Is it similar to switching job positions or switching to a new job?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So I wouldn't say I could really go on switching jobs, at least post-graduation, but at least transferring wise, for me, each school was very unique and different, which I think helped get into my professional career, in that starting at a very local, small community college, then going to a large university like Binghamton, to then coming down to what I realized I liked the most, kind of a mid-sized, more community-oriented school at Oneonta, where it's much more welcoming. You know, it's kind of the best of both worlds in that you probably know a lot of faces going around campus, but there's still a couple new ones you haven't seen or you don't see as much. And it's not like at a large university where you could see a new kid every day. And it's, for me at least, I didn't like that because I came from a smaller town, relatively speaking. So we all knew one another, and Oneonta gave me more of that community feel, which I loved. And comparing it to switching jobs, I feel like yes and no, in the fact that you have to love college and the fact that everyone can be there with totally different ideas and what they want to do. And it's so much more diverse, like in a philosophical idea wise. Meanwhile, when you get into a job, everyone's there for that one department, that one industry. But at the same time, I would say in a job, people are much more, I would say, approachable, because when you're in college, you still kind of get that sense of it's a very cliquey environment still to this day. And when you get to a job, it's much more open. You learn how to kind of get out of your comfort zone a lot more. So I guess in that regard, it can hit on both points of yes and no.
Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Shanice, as a business consultant, how do you advise your clients professionally without coming across as arrogant or scaring them off?
Yes, so I'm actually no longer a business consultant, but I think it's very relevant, especially if you're working with a client-facing job. But I have 3 rules for this, basically. The first one would be the simplest, but the most important, is to listen to your client. You have to kind of monitor how they react to what you're saying. It's almost like an unlicensed therapist job, because you constantly have to watch their body language so you can know how to communicate with them. I do have a rule of thumb that states that if I'm meeting with a client for the first time, it's more of an informational meeting, and I talk for 80 to 90% of the meeting, then I know I already did something wrong, because I couldn't have grasped my client's goals or wants or needs at that point, and I don't know how to communicate with them. The second one would be to understand the client. You have to be able to understand what they're looking for in order to respond to them in a way that they will react pleasantly or positively. So it's not a one size fits all. And you kind of have to know that there's some people who have a less knowledge on something, where someone else has like a high level knowledge on it. And you want to make sure that if they have a high level knowledge, you don't want to over explain everything, so you're wasting both of your times. Or if they have less knowledge on it, you don't want to make sure that you're using all the big words where they're completely not understanding what you're saying, and they're leaving the meeting kind of feeling that they didn't get anything out of it, and they're probably a little bit more scared coming out than they were when they came in. So make sure you understand your client, their knowledge basis, what they're looking for, in order so you can respond in that way. And the third one, which is like the negative, kind of a business consultant or dealing with clients as a whole is the idea that sometimes you have to kind of smile and nod. You're going to deal with people who are not the most pleasant sometimes, and there's a lot of people who are going to say things that you might not necessarily agree with, but you can't really react to every single one of those things, because at the end of the day, you have to really remember that you're not only representing you, but you're representing your company or your team or the group that kind of came together to compile a presentation for you to sell an idea or a product. So you really do, sometimes you have to just step away for a second, or just try to be respectful. If you feel like you can't respond in a way that can maintain that level of respect, then I would say step away or talk to your supervisor, but don't react in the moment and don't say anything that would jeopardize your character. Thank you.
Last question for Fernando. At Augury, how do you manage quota amounts best and manage the stress of reaching said quotas?
Yeah, probably with like a lot of coffee, but I mean, to be honest with you, when it comes down to it, I think it really just depends on which teammate you're dealing with. So for an example, like within sales or specifically within like tech, I'm pretty sure like finance potentially has like the same calendar, but we operate based on quarters. So this is the end of Q1. So January, February, March is one quarter, April, May, June, you get the idea. And your overarching goal is to make sure that no matter what happens, you find a way to bring in about the right amount of revenue to hit that initial Q1 target. So how do I best manage that? I think one is just making sure that all my teammates have the tools they need to be successful. So whether that is me having to take calls with their clients, whether it's me supplying them accounts, giving them feedback, or doing research and analysis on what are the best contacts that we should be reaching towards and why. And sometimes you have to get a little creative, right? Like there are times that we've had to fly to different factories or different consultancies. Like we have to meet people sometimes like even face to face. At the same time, it's just making sure that, you know, the job can get a bit monotonous initially, since again, there is a degree of cold outreach, right? You have to, you know, contact vice presidents of engineering that sit in France. You have to call them, right? And I think that's a bit daunting for people initially to have to do those conversations, but with time and enough experience, the role becomes you just get really comfortable with it. And I think thus, the more comfortable you are on top of your base, right, you start to just see more dividends being paid out in terms of like, let's say your commissions and your progression within the role itself. And not to manage stress, I mean, that's regardless of what job you do, regardless of what choice, even you guys in this room, what you decide to go down, you know, stress is a small amount of stress to me is always healthy. I think it keeps you driven. It keeps you in the right state of mind. But no matter what, right, like mental health is extremely important. So you have to make sure, regardless if it's within something that's very analytical or something more consultative or even focused within sales or BDR work, you know, you put your peace of mind first. Thankfully, again, if I ever find myself too stressed out, I mean, we have unlimited like PTO and stuff. I can take time off. I can just relax, take things easy. Thankfully, the role, if I'm going to be honest, doesn't get too stressful after a certain point, because you kind of get used to like the day-to-day swing of what you have to do. But all in all, hopefully that answers the question, right? I think just, you know, having a cool head, being able to kind of manage a team effectively, and realizing that, listen, it's just a number at the end of the day. And if you just focus and do what needs to be done, like the number's going to get hit. So I think that's just about covers it.
So Alan, seeing as you are in investment solutions and as a former analyst, how have you adapted your strategies for the current market conditions? And what advice would you give to students here for analyzing the market?
That's a great question. I would say in our particular market, fixed income, everything is priced off the risk-free curve, right? So everything starts with the Fed. That's again goes back to why the Fed challenge is so important. I see Dr. Bauer on the line here. I'd love to get his opinion after as to what the Fed does tomorrow. So it starts with an economic opinion, whether the Fed's gonna hike rates, pause, or cut. And then within the shorter end part of the curve, you know, 0 to 2 is more focused on the Fed, with the longer term, the 10-year part of the curve focused on GDP and inflation expectations. But as far as analyzing things of that nature, I think you're going to learn the ins and outs of your job when you get on the job, the advice I would give for a student looking to become an analyst would be to look into the CFA program. It's the Chartered Financial Analyst program. It kind of, it's a test where there's 3 levels, and across all, if you pass it, you're kind of get the stamp of approval that you know what you're talking about in markets, and you know enough to be dangerous to analyze markets. It's very common designation to have across portfolio managers and research analysts. I'm currently pursuing level 3 of that test, so my last part. If anyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to help. But I think it's something that really helped me as well.
Thank you very much. And now we will be moving into the Q&A section where you, the audience, will be able to ask any questions to the panelists. And so we will now begin. Does anyone have any questions for the panelists?
At the start, Mr. O'Leary, you mentioned that there was a licensing period. Does that mean you're taking like Series 7 and Series 63 tests? Or does that mean you already had them going into the job?
No, yeah, great question. So right after the 2-week orientation we had, when I first got to my office up here in Albany, they gave us a 4.5 week crash course where you would study a week for your SIE, take the test, 2 weeks for your 7, take the test, and then 2 weeks for your 66, take that test. And then you get into your, job specific training and how to speak with clients and all of that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? It can be a follow-up to that. It can be anything general at all. It can be related to their job, a question that you have for the future. Any questions?
For Fernando, when you're making a sale, how do you find yourself motivated to continue getting that person to buy something?
I'm sorry, the question was, how do I get motivated to continue? I'm sorry?
How do you find yourself getting motivated to continue with to continue through with the sale? If someone is saying, oh, I'm not interested, like that.
Well, I think when we hear the word sales, sometimes we imagine like a boiler room where someone's just like doing a bunch of cold calls and just chasing someone down. I think for us, it's a lot more consultative than that. We have an average sales cycle of around like a year, right? So it sometimes takes a year from like the initial conversation to like getting a contract signed. That said, I'm not the one necessarily that conducts the sale. I manage the team that sets up the initial appointment for then closing agents to come in and secure a contract. If I had to give you the answer everybody wants to hear, right? Like what keeps me motivated is money. But I think at the same time, it's just making sure that we can continue growing out our book of business since the market is extremely competitive, right? Like as we speak, sometimes the most important part about making a sale is not the sale, it's after the fact, it's retention. Since as soon as you secure a contract with a business, there's going to be another competing software solution that's being brought up in the market that has a bunch of funding that's going to want to take that business away from you. So, I mean, one is just, again, like wanting to make sure that, you do good service, you have a good employee brand, and you give the client what they need. But I think secondly, I mean, you just got to be committed, right? Like, I think if you are, again, confident and you're able to deliver good value on why your product makes the most sense for what this company is looking to achieve, then everything else will fall into place. So there you go.
Thank you very much. I guess you just kind of got to keep at it sometimes with motivation. But any other questions?
For Alan, I was wondering for your day-to-day, are you working with selling fixed securities to like multiple clients, or are you staying within your like own client group and just focusing on that?
So yeah, it's a great question. To break it down, our CIO within our bank, the JP Morgan Private Bank, manages $450 billion. And then we have another set of specialized portfolio managers. They manage about 50 billion. So if you're $450 billion, you move too large and you're going to move markets when you trade. So it's think of it like moving a ship. So they're more of long-term focused. And then those other sets of portfolio managers, the 50 billion, they're a little bit more tactical, more theme focused. Anything that is on our platform, whether it's these the CIO's portfolio, whether it's these specialized strategies, or whether it's anything that our advisors are selling to their clients, comes through our team, and we've given a stamp of approval. So we go out and we look for funds. We have about 150 fixed income funds on our platform. We find a niche area of the market. To give you an example, if yields are rising last year, loans outperformed high yield. So we're looking at loan funds to bring onto the platform. We'll go out to the street and say there's 10 different managers that meet our criteria. They have about 500 million that they manage. We'll meet with each of those portfolio managers, talk to their team, understand how they run the portfolio, what their performance has been, and then we'll pick the best of those 10 to bring onto our platform. Then we present it to an investment committee. It either gets a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if it gets a thumbs up, then our portfolio managers can use it. But essentially, we're the research analyst for our portfolio managers. Let me know if that answered the question.
Very satisfactory. Thank you very much. It's a lot of money. It can be stressful. But any other questions? It can be a follow-up.
Shanice, what made you want to pursue an MBA and what have been the benefits?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The question was for Shanice, what made you want to pursue an MBA and what were the benefits of pursuing said MBA?
Okay, so the real answer that I decided to pursue my MBA was Binghamton had offered me a really good tuition. They offered me a good scholarship, and I figured it was an opportunity that I couldn't give up. The rest of the tuition that I couldn't cover, my dad offered me a plan that if we followed the 5-year plan that we came up with together, he would cover that completely and allow me a chance to kind of focus on my full education before I step into the real world. And there was a second option as well. I recently launched my real estate company. So I was also working on that. So I needed to kind of get some things out of the way. That way I could fully focus on my dreams and then also working my daytime job. So I'm in the office. I usually try to get there by 8 o'clock, sometimes 7:45, just to get my day started before, 9 o'clock. I'm at home probably by 6 and 7, and from 7 to midnight, I'm completely working on that business, completely working to get all my rental properties up and running. So I kind of needed to get all of those things out of the way to really hone in and focus on my future plan. So I hope that answers it.
Satisfactory. Yeah, sometimes the opportunities in life will just line up and, if they're advantageous, you should take them. So, any other questions? Don't be shy. Anything really, it could really be any question. Well, for now, if you want to think of another question, we will just move on to basic general questions. So the first one would just be for any one of the panelists. What are day-to-day activities at work like for you? Let's say when you arrive and to when you go home, what would the activities look like for you?
I can answer that.
Sure.
Well, I guess I already started to state that. I am a little bit away from work. I live in Queens. It's in the city. I live closer to Long Island, so it takes me about an hour and a half sometimes. So I do like to get a head start on my day. So I get there by 7:45, 8 o'clock, the latest. Usually everybody starts to trickle in by 9 o'clock. So there's no pressure on really getting there beforehand. It's just me. I get there at 8. I start reading what I need to get a head start on all my emails. I get on average over 100 emails on a daily. So getting started to go over all those emails. And then by 9 o'clock, we have a morning meeting. We have these daily. It's about 30 minutes. Basically, we just go over what we're currently working on, if there's any new deals. We do deals only with institutions. So basically Hyundai, CLO, so collateralized loan obligation, CMBS, commercial mortgage-backed securities, ABS, asset-backed securities. So these are auto loans, credit cards. So we do deals with Capital One, Citibank, JP Morgan, Credit Suisse, and a wide range of others. So we basically go over any incoming deals. So we set up what team is going to work on that. I mainly work on the CLO front. So there's a deal that comes in on the CLO front. I usually take the lead on that to get the analysis going and the write-up. By 9:30, I'm back at my desk. There's a lot of work in Excel, Bloomberg, Intex. These are some of the softwares that I use on a day-to-day basis. I live on Excel. I actually have about 8 Excels open right now on a day-to-day. I have probably a good 11, 10, and 4 different screens in front of me while I'm at work. I actually only go in the office 3 days a week now. Last month I was only doing 2 days a week, and before that I was working completely at home. Obviously, they're driving us to come into the office a little bit more. Throughout the day, it depends on what's going on. I might have a couple meetings that I will sit into if I'm doing a deal and I don't fully understand what's going on, or I have a follow-up question. Usually if there's something that hits the market, for instance, when all the regional banks kind of closed, we would hop on a call to talk to, for example, First Horizon, to kind of see how they're handling that, how we're going to move forward. And we are the risk management team. So the whole goal of it is to find out how we're going to be risk averse to kind of solve the issue at hand. So I sit on any meetings that I might have. I might sit in and talk to some of my team members, because I'm still, even though it's been a year, I'm still always in that training phase. I'm still always trying to learn more. We deal with 6 different asset classes, so there's so many more room to grow. By 5:30, most of us kind of starts to trickle out of the office. By 5:45, there's nobody. The office is completely empty by then, and I think I get home probably by 6:37, and then that's when I start to get working on my own company at home and start doing whatever I need to have to get that done. Sometimes I have to plan meetings at night, because obviously no one's going to pick up the phone at 9 o'clock at night. So I kind of have to plan those meetings to schedule those between 7 and 9 before I actually get started. So that's usually what my day consists of.
Thank you very much. It was very detailed, and I'm glad, so people can get an idea of what it would be like to work in something of a position like that. I felt like I was you for a second, but thank you very much for answering that. Any other questions that you would like to ask for the general audience? Any other questions?
Can we ask a question?
I mean, why not? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you guys invited us here. What do you guys want to do in terms of the people that are sitting in front right now, out of the people who questioned us? Like, if everything went your way, rather, what would you do as a career once you graduate from ONI?
Well, I'll start with me, since I've been asking the most questions as the president. As for me, preferably, I would like to, my degree is in business economics with a concentration in accounting. Preferably, I'd like to get a job in preferably one of the big 4, maybe after I graduate, or maybe something of a medium size, preferably in the city. But I know there's a lot of good positions in upstate and Albany, especially. Preferably, I'd like to work in a position like that for about 2 to 3 years, and then eventually get my CPA and really continue from there. And that would be about it. I haven't really thought about beyond that. But this club especially has given me a lot of experience with communication, setting up events like this, and really just getting some experience before I would enter into the real workforce. Asia?
So in terms of career, I really haven't thought about it too much, because after I leave ONI, I plan on pursuing more school. Yeah, going to graduate school and maybe even getting a PhD, maybe. So, yeah.
All right, so I'm Michael and I have a business economics degree as well. I guess me and my parents have always talked about opening a business, but I know what I want to do personally. I want to go with automotive because I've always had a passion for cars. And I mean, I don't really have to be making hundreds of thousands, but as long as it's, you know, something that makes me happy and something that I could be at the forefront of it and ahead of it with this kind of degree, so I can, you know, see what's going on behind the scenes, as well as not getting taken advantage of while letting someone else do stuff like run my books. So, yeah.
And I'm an economics stats major, and I haven't given too much thought into what I'm going to do after schooling, but when after I graduate this year, I do plan on going into a PhD program in economics.
I would just like to say I'm an economic and Africana and Latinx studies major. Forgot to add that.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, we have a lot of different types of degrees and some more concrete plans than others, but still a plan.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome that you guys have a diverse background. I want to leave you guys with something. So if you're interested in working within New York City, whether within finance or analytics, or even within, you know, investment banking or even within tech sales, a good website that a lot of people don't know about is builtinnyc.com. It's the word built, then the word in nyc.com. And a lot of good tech companies there are recruiting like recent graduates. I also do resume consulting. I mean, on the side, if you're obviously being in ONI, I can help you guys for free. If you want to take my LinkedIn as well and send me a resume, I can give you feedback, because that was basically what I did for a living at my old job. So anything that we can do to support you guys, like, we just know that, you know, there's this interpretation that you being from a SUNY school, like, versus like Harvard or Yale, Princeton, like, you have excellent connections here. So believe me, like, I have hired people who've been to NYU and Harvard and those very prestigious schools, and now they're reporting up to me. So this is an excellent school and you have an excellent network, and whatever it is you want to do, believe me, like, you can get it done with connections. Believe me, anything is possible. So again, shout out to Professor K for setting up this event and getting us in touch. So by all means, hopefully we can hear from you guys at some point in the future as well.
Thank you very much. Extremely useful. Builtin.nyc.com.
Builtinnyc.com. There you go. Sorry.
Builtinnyc.com. Feel free to remember that, anyone in the audience. And if anyone in the audience, any other questions, or even the panel in the back?
Can I leave a note, actually? Somebody asked a question about the Series 63 and the 79, and I just want to say I took a year to take mine, probably 6 to 8 months maybe. So I think it depends on the company. You can actually take the SIE on your own if you'd like to kind of get a head start, especially if you're starting at one of the big fours where you only get a month or 3 months to get it done. I got 6 months, but they were very flexible with it. So I did the SIE 60 through 79 and then the 63. I would say try to find out what your company is asking for, and depending on the timeline or how you study, you might want to get a head start on your own. And I think it's only $60 for the SIE. It isn't too expensive, and you can kind of get a fresh start on what you're going to be doing, because it does cover a wide range of things. It goes high level because it's covering so many different industries almost. And my last post, when I was interviewing last year, I have so many connections that I made. So you can always reach out with Deloitte and KPMG, and I can always send those to you. I think that was something that I was lacking in my interview process. A lot of people would say network, but no one would kind of try to connect you with anyone that they knew, or you would probably send a message to someone and they would never respond. So I would love to pass that forward if anyone's looking to get in the financial or consulting field. Yeah, you can always send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect you. Thank you.
To piggyback off of what Shanice said, awesome point. Just because if you want to network with someone, it doesn't necessarily mean it's for what their role is or what their company is. Myself, along with, I'm sure, the other 3 panelists, have in our short careers and early on have already got to know so many people at whether it be different companies in New York City in the same industry. So just if you want to talk to one of us or anyone in general, don't think it has to be for exactly what they're doing.
That's an excellent point. I completely agree.
Sometimes connecting with someone can lead to a completely different opportunity, even if you weren't initially trying for that. So thank you very much, and feel free to, again, reach out on LinkedIn. Did you have a question in the back?
For Brendan or Alan, have you ever done any personal financial advisement, like anything more closer to just like the individual rather than a company? If not, have you worked closely with that division through your section of work?
I couldn't really make out most of the question. I got if we did some financial consulting.
Yeah, the
Someone
question,
I could summarize.
the question was more so that he knows your role, but have you done anything more along the lines of personal financial consulting?
So I'll start with on my end. Technically, if I wanted to, like as we were talking here, I have the Series 7 63 as well, where once you pass that, you're a financial advisor, or however, when you're working for a registered company by the SEC, there's a lot of regulations around what you can and cannot say. So if I came and said something that disagreed with the IB's view or with someone's view at the firm, it's important to keep kind of your institution as one institution and not all 250,000 employees having their own opinions. So it's frowned upon by compliance to go out and do your own financial consulting. You would have to have that cleared by risk and compliance before you do any of that. Like in my own portfolio, I manage it the way I've learned to do, and can give advice from time to time, but no like paid consulting or anything along that lines. I'll pass it to Brendan.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. To even go on top of that, like where I work, where Alan works, we all have these internal calls, internal meetings, and they kind of do that to make it one consensus view firm wide. So your clients can kind of not hear conflicting views from different employees within the firm. And as Shanice said before, your day to day and even how you said about consulting, it's very client specific and the planning that goes into it. So like some of my clients are current CEOs where you get your single stock exposure, or they want to be more actively managed in like a down market now, or you have your hedge funds where we're sitting in private equity meetings and they're pitching funds to us. But a lot of it is just they try and make it firm wide views on what's going on, and outside consulting is, as Alan mentioned, pretty frowned upon. So if that's what you were answering, if it was a completely different question, then feel free to chime back in.
Okay, he was satisfied with the answer. And I would have to thank you all for showing up to the program, especially thank you for the panelists for showing up and giving us your very valuable time with your very valuable responses. And again, as they said, feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn after the program ends and send them a message, ask them even more questions about what their job is like, perhaps if they know anyone in any field. And thank you, the audience, for showing up and asking us questions. It helps make the program interactive. And thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. K, for setting this up, and thank you to the other three panelists. It was a joy to listen to your stories as well.
Likewise.
Likewise. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Enjoy
Yeah,
your night.
thanks to everybody. Shanice, you need to take it easy sometime. Not all the time, just once in a while.
I take a vacation every 3 months out of the country, so.
Yes, that's very nice.
Perfect.
Okay,
How about that?
you know best.
Thank you.
I think I'm damn deep.
Everyone,
If no one was here,
good night.
everybody gone crazy.
No one likes
All the
brownies.
No one likes brownies. Are you good? Last time we were here, you showed up for no reason.
Everyone is-